What's up, everyone? VRR Unplugged. We're back after a week break. Not intentional. Um, I'm Clayton Hardy, and along with me is the usual group. We got Weasel, Tyler Parker, RACECAR on board. We're gonna have a bit to catch up. We've got IndyCar discussion and we've got F1 discussion. If you're looking for IMSA discussion, we have to catch us next week when we talk about Iowa, because we've got so much to catch up on. IndyCar from North America and IndyCar developments outside off track, and then F1 from France, and then Austria, which was today, and then Silverstone is next week. So it's going to be really busy these next couple weeks.
Yeah, this is the first ever triple header in F1.
Yeah, that
Straight up, yeah.
And with how Liberty Media is going, there's going to be a bit more of that.
Yeah.
But we'll finish up with F1, because F1 is a tale of two worlds between France and Austria.
God, yes.
So the first thing, obviously, if VRR is very IndyCar focused, if you have not paid attention to anything that we have on YouTube at all, we're very IndyCar focused. So when news comes that a track is leaving the calendar, things kind of pick up. And that's what happened, I think, prior to Road America. ISM, which owns Phoenix, and IndyCar made the announcement that Phoenix would not be renewing their contract after the 2018 race. So they did 3 races. 2018 race wasn't that bad. It was, in comparison to 2016, 2017, it was loads better. But not great ticket sales, and just the fact that they're constantly trying to figure out how something's going to work, even though I think everyone knows what the problem is with Phoenix. Kind of made it a dead in the water thing. So it's gone. But what came after it was pretty important, because ISM or ISC, I don't know why I'm saying ISM. ISM is the track's name, track's new name, but ISC, International Speedway Corporation, kind of dropped the ball when they said, we want another one of our tracks to replace Phoenix. We want another one of our tracks on the calendar to keep IndyCar where it is. And they're willing to work with that. Okay, that's interesting. Now, I know people that aren't familiar with ISC, and I'm going to use the whole not safe for work thing. I said during the canceled Le Mans thing that we have one free not safe for work interview, one not safe for work podcast a month. I'm going to use it here. So I know a lot of people are going to ask, okay, what the fuck is ISC owning? Okay, so here's what ISC owns: Daytona, Talladega, Watkins Glen, Richmond, Darlington, Homestead, Phoenix, Chicagoland, and there's a couple more that they own, but they're not really prominent. Kansas is another one, and Auto Club. Those are the big ones. Now, for those that follow IndyCar, a lot of big names are in that group. Chicagoland's hosted races. 2 of the closest IndyCar finishes are Chicagoland. Homestead hosted 6 IndyCar races from 2005 to 2010. Actually, I think hosted more than that. I think that goes back to like 2002. So they've got an IndyCar history. And if it wasn't for the fact that Randy Bernard was an idiot, Homestead might have went there longer.
Yeah. So ISM basically bought all
ISC.
ISC basically bought all the old Penske holdings.
More or less.
Auto Club,
because they own Michigan too, don't they?
Yep.
So that was Penske's Super Speedway test track.
Yep.
Auto Club was Penske's California test track.
Basically.
They don't own Nazareth, do they?
They bought it, but then they tore it down and moved the grandstands to Watkins Glen.
Okay, so
or something like that. They moved the grandstands to different tracks that they owned.
ISC still owns Nazareth, but it's up for sale. No one's just bought it.
No. And I know it's a dirt track now, right?
No, it's dirt. It's not a track. It's dirt. I mean,
it's still tarmac. Like, you can still see the track itself. There's just nothing on the infield or outfield, and there's dirt mounds to keep people from driving on it.
I thought they tore it up, and those mounds were No. Okay.
No.
So there are
No.
mounds to prevent you hot lapping on it or doing stuff on it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it still exists, but it's not active anymore. And so someone theoretically could come and buy it and renovate it and bring it back to life. Not sure what the noise ordinance laws for that area is.
I
Seeing as
think
how
they
Nazareth,
might have.
and Nazareth
They
is
might
racing.
have tightened up in the last 10 years since it closed, but I don't know that information off the top of my head.
I don't care to look at it because it's not coming back anytime soon. But
No.
they used to they currently still own Nazareth, but it's up for sale.
Right.
But a lot of tracks that they own have either recently hosted IndyCar tracks or IndyCar races, or
Mhm.
have a very historied IndyCar career.
Mhm.
So ISC says, okay, we want to replace Phoenix with something else. Okay, so what works? Okay, so if you're sticking with the April date, which I'm assuming IndyCar is going to want to try to do, what's going to work? Auto Club, not going to work.
Because
now let's throw out the fact that the IndyCar CEO, not the IndyCar CEO, but the Auto Club president said, we want a finale. We want that October finale. Throw that out because he's talking up a big game because he's competing with Sonoma. He's talking up a big game to try to intimidate Sonoma, to try to threaten Sonoma, which isn't working.
And historically, back in the day of Kart ran there, Champ Car tried to run there, IndyCar now, when they last ran there up until 2015, it was always historically a race in the first or second week of October at night.
Yeah.
And he's just trying to build off of that. That's like sort of like a date equity thing, a historic date equity thing.
Well,
you could say.
It's not so much now that
in addition to
it's not so much now that data equity is a thing. It's just that, okay, you think about Auto Club. Why Auto Club doesn't work in April is because they've already got that stock car race.
Mm-hmm.
They've already got the
one
NASCAR.
thing.
And
that's one thing right there.
Okay, so why they want October is the heat.
Yes,
That's
gets
the only
brutally,
reason.
ridiculously. I know. I'm on the coast. I've been to LA. It is brutal from June onwards. It's just no way. You can't. It's
so that's why a night race would work. Now,
no.
But IndyCar
why this would appeal? How you can make this appeal to Auto Club is say, okay, well, instead of you being the finale of the season, you could be the first 500-mile race of the season. That would appeal to the ego.
Where are you going to slot that in?
That's the thing. You can't slot it in April.
No.
Most of the tracks that ISC owns, you can't slot in April. There's one track you can. Homestead.
Ooh.
And you can back that up back to back with St. Pete. St. Pete's in Tampa.
And
Homestead Miami is obviously in Miami. And both that's a 5-hour distance. Two completely different areas.
Yes.
They're not going to compete with each other.
Advantage Carlin Racing.
East Coast races. You got two Florida races that are far away from each other enough to where you don't have to worry about it. Or if you're IndyCar and they've done it before, sell package tickets. Okay, you want to go? You want to see both races? And you're in Florida. You live in Florida. Say you live in Tampa, or you live in Miami, or you live in between. You can do both.
Yeah.
Especially if there's a 2-week gap or a week gap. If you're going back to back.
Could you even slot that race in to where there's less of a gap between St. Pete and this typical?
Well, that's the thing. It would happen between St. Pete and Long Beach. St. Pete's the opener. St. Pete's the opener, no matter what, unless a race overseas happens.
Yes,
St. Pete's the opener.
Straight up, they are the north. They are the. How I read it.
The idea, the concept behind a early Homestead race would be 2 weeks after St. Pete, because if removing the Phoenix race now, you've got 5 weeks between St. Pete and Long Beach, which is unhealthy. 4 weeks is bad. 5 weeks is going to be unbearable. And then you go back to 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 back all the way until June.
No. Tempo's off.
Which doesn't make sense. So you'd have St. Pete, and then you'd have Homestead 2 weeks after. So then you've got a 3-week gap between um, Homestead and Long Beach.
Mm-hmm.
What you could do is instead of having Barber after Long Beach, have it before Long Beach. 3 races on the East Coast, go to Long Beach, have a 2-week break before Indianapolis.
Man.
Well,
Instead of having 7-8 weeks where you're on it, now you've got a month span or a 6-week span where you're on a week, off a week, on a week, off a week, on a week, off a week, and then you're off 2 weeks, and then you've got the Indy GP, you've got 2 weeks for Indianapolis 500, then you've got Belle Isle in Texas, or just Texas, because no idea where Belle Isle stands right now.
Yeah,
and I'll get to that later.
That's another thing to talk about. Yeah.
So then you've shortened everyone's span up. Okay, you've kept the calendar the same, but now you're more relevant for longer. Now you've got St. Pete, which is going to be on NBC.
Yes.
We know that's going to be on NBC.
Yes.
Homestead would potentially be on NBC. You've got 1, 2. Barber would not be. Long Beach would be. So you've got 3 of the 4 races on NBC because NBC has guaranteed IndyCar as much exposure as possible. They want to give it as much exposure and as much popularity as the Kentucky Derby. That is their game plan because Kentucky Derby, since NBC's acquired that, the Kentucky Derby has the viewership for it has risen almost 200%.
It doubled Indy's rating this year, guys, to give it a perspective.
Yes. Now, and that's because NBC has went all in on that, and they want to do that with IndyCar because they've been loyal to IndyCar. IndyCar's been loyal to them, and they got a good deal for it. Like it was a good deal for both. It was a cheaper deal than what ABC was offering.
Yep.
But NBC is saying, okay, what you're not making here, we'll spend on exposure, which is what they're going to possibly lose when they lose Verizon. So that's a two-pronged effort. Instead of having ESPN, which isn't going to promote it at all, you have NBC, which is going to do a lot of what Verizon currently is doing. That's why the NBC deal is so important right now, because there's a loyalty to that because they've been on Versus and then NBC Sports Network for how long? Almost a decade.
Yeah. How about that? Yes.
So that's a big deal. So there's at least 8 races, 9 weekends if you include Indy qualifying, that are going to be on NBC proper.
Yes.
What NBC is looking at doing is putting as much as the early races on as possible to build up Indy 500. And then you're going to get the key races later on in the season, including the finale. So you're going to get Sonoma, yay. Texas most likely is going to be a given. Pocono's a given. That's 7. Point and click to an 8th because you can kind of throw anything at it. You can pick Iowa. You can pick Gateway. Gateway would be a good one to have because it's going to sell. And having a full grandstand at Gateway means a lot.
Honestly, I would say Gateway Road America would be good choices, but might be too many races. Too many races and too many of a small pick. I think Gateway would be a good sell because it builds up that finale to Sonoma. It'd be close to
the end of the season. But at the same time, you can't underestimate Eddie Gassage because he's willing to spend for that. And that's money going in IndyCar's pocket. So IndyCar still wins.
Yeah.
That and because Texas is a 600-kilometer race, it's a traditional, it's there. It's always been there.
Yeah, it's the last holdover of the old days. The olden days.
Aside from Indy, but
right. Modern olden days. You get my point.
So you've got that's what the current layout is for. That's what the current blueprint is for NBC. You want to build up Indianapolis 500 as much as possible. Well, how do you do that? Make more races early on in the season accessible through NBC,
and make them more frequent and on
Yes.
Schedule, so it's not 2 races back to back and then a 3-week break and then we'll race here like the current schedule is. Make the schedule more consistent for broadcasting, for teams, for travel. It makes so much sense. It does.
So instead of having Phoenix, which is on the West Coast, and then you have West Coast, East Coast,
Right.
You'd have three East Coast races with a week in between each,
Mhm.
and then you'd have a week, and then Long Beach, and then you'd have 2 weeks, and then Indy.
Yeah.
And then you'd have whatever comes after Indy. So that's why Homestead's such a big deal. And a lot of people have been name dropping Homestead in particular. Like a lot of people, ISC name dropped it, IndyCar name dropped it.
Hmm.
Like there is something with Homestead going on.
Yeah.
Well,
Now,
it's always been a decent track to race at, and the races
Yeah.
there were pretty good from
and because it's
my
progressive
recollection.
banking, it's
Right.
because it's progressive banking, because that race would most likely be a night race. It would be exciting.
Yeah.
Especially
And
if
it's
the
not-
numbers look the way it's supposed to be, and we're going to have 25 cars next year.
Yeah.
Plus, the other
That's
thing to
another-
think about too is you really need to run those races at those times, especially on the East or Gulf Coast area too, just because you're outside of hurricane season at that point as well.
That's another factor to consider. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's why Homestead's so important. People one is like, oh, Auto Club configure, no, stock car race. Kansas
Mhm.
configure, no, stock car race. Richmond configure, no, stock car race, same freaking weekend.
Yeah.
Okay, so those don't work. How about
Mhm.
Michigan or Chicagoland?
No interest.
In March, snow. It's
Yeah.
not so much interest. Chicagoland's interested. It just that's too early.
Yeah.
And
true.
if you move it to May, then it's too close to the stock car race. If you move
Mhm.
it too far later, then you're hurting Iowa
Right.
or Road America
Right.
or both.
Right.
And that's a big deal.
Yes.
Chicagoland just doesn't fit.
No.
Honestly,
Michigan doesn't fit.
yeah, I don't need to see the Indy cars on a mile and a half right now. I don't.
Well,
I don't.
I do.
The thing is that Homestead's not a traditional mile and a half. I get
Well,
why that fixed, because it's a unique. It's for banking,
Yeah.
a quad oval, and it's not a tri-oval. It's almost
Yeah.
like what Atlanta used to be before it turned into a quad oval, just with progressive banking and a little bit higher banking overall.
Little history lesson: Homestead was originally designed to be mini Indy.
A scaled, yeah, it was designed to be a scaled down Indy,
Yeah.
Exactly.
and then it was
during the
rebuilt
split.
and turned into like a classic paper
Yeah.
on a half with no banking, which worked for open wheel cars, but stock cars, it was bad. The racing was bad. I remember it. And then they went with the progressive banking, and the racing has been pretty fun, all
Well,
considered, for everything. It's fun. But
yeah, so they've name dropped Homestead, but at the same time, okay, so if you do that, then you close up potential avenues to go with. So say you pick Homestead. Okay. So that 4-week gap that was between Homestead and Phoenix, not Homestead, but St. Pete and Phoenix this year, they had the idea of maybe throwing in a track further up the East Coast. North Carolina, South Carolina. Richmond was supposed to slot in there.
oh,
They were looking at Richmond to slot in between St. Pete and Phoenix.
whoa.
Because with Richmond, Richmond does not need a lot of attendance to make money.
No.
Richmond is in a very tax haven friendly area.
Yes.
They don't pay that much taxes. They make a lot of revenue, period.
Yes.
So they wouldn't have needed a large fan base. They wouldn't have needed a large attendance like what Phoenix needs. They would have been fine. And because Virginia's very racing oriented place, it would have already done better anyway. Especially if you bundled it with the stock car race, which Richmond could have done on its own.
Yeah.
Like what Texas does. Exactly same thing Texas does.
Packages and stuff.
Yeah. Same thing. They could have done that and they would have been fine. Phoenix never did that. And because it was so close to the stock car race at Phoenix anyway, it hurt.
Yeah.
So that was where Richmond was supposed to go. Now that ISE's pushing Homestead forward, Richmond's fallen back. Now, Richmond could make an appearance later in the year.
I like it.
That's true.
Because Richmond has races. Richmond has races April and September.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's an open weekend where the Mexico City race was supposed to be. Late July, early August. Huh.
Yeah.
That sounds like something Richmond could do. It's almost as if you were planning on doing it for March. That's what ISC is working on. Now, okay. People are like, okay, well, you've got Watkins Glen. Bring it back. Where are you going to put it? Early March, it's going to be snowing there still.
Yeah.
You put it where the Mexico City race is. That's the same weekend as the Cup race.
Yeah.
No, don't do that. And people's like, well, just extend the end of the calendar. Well, you don't want to do that because football season, and that does conflict with NBC.
Yes, it does.
Now, it would have conflicted more with ABC in ESPN, but it still conflicts with NBC. And plus, you've got hockey.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And hockey's a big deal to IndyCar. Hockey's a big deal to NBC too.
Yes, it is.
And then the Olympics every 4 years, or every 2 years.
That's right.
All right, because it's summer.
So
Summer Olympics. Yeah.
well, summer and winter because NBC's got that until 2028.
Right.
So that's a long. Like NBC's thinking long term. They always think long term with their stuff.
Yes.
Okay, so you want to avoid clashing with the Summer Olympics, and the Winter Olympics are usually too early to worry about that. So, okay, Richmond could fit in on that early August date, and then you could put Homestead where it is. Okay, so now you've got more ovals, which is what IndyCar hinted at, because they released an article saying, okay, what would the perfect calendar look like? And they even mentioned the desire from Jay Fry and Mark Miles to increase the percentage of oval races from 35 to 40%.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's at least one, possibly two oval races, depending on what happens with Belle Isle. And when that article was released, it was prior to Road America being renewed. So at least one new oval race on top of what is replacing Phoenix. And 18 to 19 races. Okay, so that's a big deal. That's a lot there.
Yeah.
So we'll run down the others that are less important. Kansas, for early March is possible. It's not likely, but it's possible. And it would work without affecting Iowa. That's the big key.
That's the key, yeah, with Kansas, because that's again shared market.
Anything later than mid-March, anything later than late March, does not work for Phoenix. Does not work for Kansas because of the stock car race in early June.
Yes.
So, and then there's the big deal over. Okay, we talked about Road America renewing, so they're staying where they are. Pocono's staying where it is. And most people have been saying, Pocono's gone. Pocono's gone. No, it's not.
No. No. I mean,
Pocono's
just for
not going
me,
anywhere because and it's not so much because of the family; it's because of the sponsorship. ABC Supply is anteed up. They're like, okay, we're staying with AJ Foyt because they've had a great year so far.
Yeah, actually.
Okay, so ABC's like, okay, now we're getting some more bang for our buck. That team's doing well. Okay, how about Pocono? Attendance has been doing pretty well. We're getting 20, 25, 30,000 people there, which
it's progressively,
which is pretty good.
Slowly gotten more and more with each year.
Pocono's had the same date. They haven't moved everywhere.
Date equity.
So
it's the biggest thing that comes to the calendar, honestly.
That's Mark Miles' big key is, okay, everyone's happy with where they're at. Okay, cool, good. Stay there.
Right.
So Pocono's not going anywhere. Road America's not going anywhere. Mid Ohio's not going anywhere.
No way.
Most of the end of the season, outside of maybe Portland and Sonoma, because Portland's got a 3-year deal.
Right.
But there's options to back out of that.
Right.
And I believe the same deal was in place for Gateway, but after this year's of race, I think they went ahead and took up that option to just stick it out the long term.
Yeah.
Which would make sense because they made a killing.
Yeah, no, they
Iowa's
got
Iowa's a
50,000.
staple.
Yeah.
Iowa's a staple. So most of the end of the season is pretty set in stone, aside from maybe Sonoma, because I think it's in a contract year.
Yeah,
They're not the only race in the contract year.
I
Belle
think.
Isle and Texas.
Yeah, I think one thing to consider about Sonoma and Texas, while you have ISC owning so many races, Texas and Sonoma, of course, are owned by SMI and Bruton Smith's
Yes.
company, and they are ISC's biggest competitor. So I know probably I would gather that SMI would want to keep what they have and maybe add one more race to maybe compare to ISC rather than
They're not looking to add.
But they're not interested. Okay, they're not looking to add. Okay.
The reason why is that SMI doesn't operate like ISC. ISC operates very internally, so ISC has a lot of say with their tracks, whereas SMI has some, but not with certain tracks. Sonoma is not that way.
Okay.
Texas is not that way. That's why Eddie Gasage is such a character, is because he's got a lot of control over Texas. But I think both are in contract years, and so is Belle Isle. Now, this is important because before Belle Isle came back in 2012, Texas was the race right after
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. When Belle Isle came back, Texas moved back a week.
Right.
Now, Belle Isle's in a contract year. They're in a contract year with IndyCar, and they're in a contract year with the Natural Resources Department of Michigan. Now they're working on a renewal of that contract.
Yes.
Now, in the VRR Discord, I dropped down some facts on what Belle Isle's done. I think I did, and Angel added on to it. So there were 45,000 people. There were 45,000 people that attended race 1, and about 55,000 that attended race 2 in Belle Isle this year.
Shit, that's really good this year. Wow.
That is really good. Really good. And that's not including IMSA attendance.
Yeah, wow, that's even better then. Whew.
Belle Isle made a killing this year.
Yeah.
And Belle Isle doesn't do bad any year. This year was really, really good. So Belle Isle is really keen on keeping that date. Now, for those that are, I guess everyone here knows about a little bit of history about Belle Isle. When they tried a later date, it didn't work. When they tried a Labor Day date, it didn't work. When they tried a August date, it didn't work. They need that date right after Indianapolis. Texas doesn't need it, but it wants it.
Yes.
When the hype is the freshest, obviously it's a money making tactic. It's prime
real estate. I mean, that's why so many years, and why that was always a sellout for a long time in the old days. But
I hate to say it. Okay, here's where I'm at with the Texas race, because I tried to go to that year that it just got stupid rained out.
Yeah.
And then they had to push it back to August.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I was Eddie Gossage, I would say, let's find a way to push this back. I know you want this historic date and everything, but Gossage, let's be honest right now. I would try to get it sometime right before football season starts and sort of maximize. We're the biggest ticket in town right now. Living in the Dallas area, it's all about Rangers and the Texas Rangers and the Dallas Cowboys. Honestly, the Rangers aren't going to be doing stuff for a few years.
No.
So maximize.
No, as a baseball fan, I can say that for sure.
Yeah, maximize your potential and get it in a time where it's not god awful hot.
The reason a later Texas date doesn't work is because of the fall Texas race.
In September? Is it in September?
Believe so. Let me look. If someone can look that up real quick, because I know that Texas has 2 races.
Honestly, I would even go into the last. They do have 2 races. I know the first one's in April, and then the next one's in. I thought it was late September though.
It's in their playoff schedule. It's in their playoff schedule.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's still not going to work because you want at least 2 months between races.
Yes. So that would put a theoretical back Texas race in July, which I don't think that would.
Which is even hotter. Which is even hotter than what it is.
Yeah.
That's why a later race doesn't work. Is because if you move too far late, then you're essentially killing the race. And if you move to that July date, then it's going to be super unbearable.
Well, let's be honest.
Because...
Let's be honest about this too. And I hate to say it, but IndyCar is going to have to start flexing their muscles with NASCAR to a certain extent. And I know everybody should be getting along and everything, but
IndyCar is not to that point yet.
Oh,
no,
I know
they're not.
Certain places they are. Certain places they are. Like with Florida.
That would be a track.
They could flex their muscles.
That would be a track that I would circle though, and I would come back to it then, because honestly, talking from people who went to the inaugural NASCAR race at Texas, those races are shit shows. Absolute shit shows. And it's terrible to get into the place. It's terrible to get out of the place. And again, I love that there's a super speedway in Texas, but it's just I feel like also before Eddie starts throwing his weight around, you need to invest a little bit more. They've invested a lot into the track, but you need to invest a little bit more into the facilities.
Yeah. I've heard stories about how bad Texas is.
I've been to the track once, wasn't impressed. Again, might be elite because I come from IMS country.
Yeah.
And Indianapolis top tier.
It's so hard to beat Indianapolis.
Dude, but then again, that plumbing hasn't been redone since probably the 50s. 60s it played it. I still pee into a trough. So, yeah. That's where I'm at with that.
Sonoma, in comparison, even though there's not a cover for you from the heat or whatever, I never got that feeling about it. They all like the washrooms are top notch. The tarmac is all nice and fresh. There's dirt like lots and stuff, but dude, it's August when they run here. It's early September. There's nothing. There's no problems with those kind of things. But that's just my 2 cents about that.
But now to bring up how important Texas is. Okay, so Belle Isle drew in 105,000 fans total. For the IndyCar races. Okay, so what did Texas draw? Well, Texas isn't going to release official figures. Most IndyCar venues do not. But if you look at the broadcast and the aerial shots of the parking lot, you'll see how full it is, surprisingly.
Yeah, actually.
It looks surprisingly full. Now it's Texas has a Indianapolis effect where you can have a great crowd, but there's just way too much seating.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is with the Brickyard when they do the NASCAR race.
And it was like that.
Is decent, but it's just there's 400,000 seating capacity. It's going to look empty.
Sonoma has
the same way, I think.
And Sonoma has the same problem now too, because they built up a ton as well. And this year, not this year, dude. You didn't watch the Cup race this year. They almost did no crowd shots at all. And the one time that you did get to sneak about it, like the turn 2 grandstands and the back straight grandstands, the ones that are out in the open that's stone, they were not full. They were not even close to full. They were about a little bit more than what I went to IndyCar like last year. They were more than that, but they were not like packed like they used to be. So they might be suffering the same problem. It's $200 a ticket to go to Sonoma. That's why I've never done it. And that's a ticket. That is no paddock pass. That is not reserved parking. That's just, that's ridiculous. And again, no shade, no cover. It's
F1
damn, dude. Yeah, it's stupid. It's so stupid.
That's crazy. So Texas, I think, has 135,000 seating capacity.
Something like that. I read that too. It's close to that.
135,000, something like that. It's one of the bigger ones. It's almost up next there with Charlotte. I think Charlotte has 160-something thousand. Texas has 135.
I think Charlotte downsized a little bit so they could put in the really big screen on the back.
That's true.
So
I forgot about that.
I think it's closer to 150, 100. It's still more than Texas, but not as much of a gap as it would be.
Be 135,000, and I'd be willing to say 60,000 were at Texas. I think I'd be willing to say that with how full the parking lot was and how full the grandstands looked, all the way throughout. Because like obviously you could see there were some empty spots, but there was a lot of people spread out.
Yeah,
and it still looked like a good crowd.
Yeah, it actually looked like a good crowd this year at Texas. It surprised me when I watched it.
Like you could see like there was a lot of people up front, and as you looked out, like if they zoomed out and from pit lane and looked out, you could see that it was a pretty good spread throughout.
Actually,
which was really cool because usually you don't see that. You usually see people up on the top side and not a lot on the bottom. But there was a lot of people on the bottom and on the top, so that was cool.
Yeah.
So Texas did good business wise, and the racing was pretty good.
Yeah,
so
actually,
that's a plus. Belial was good, and the race was good. So
yeah, I thought it was. We thought it was pretty good, all considered.
The battle is interesting to see how Belial goes.
Yeah.
Because Belial is one of those things where Roger Penske is not someone that just stops giving money to a project that's working well.
No.
I don't see Eddie Gassage. I don't see Eddie Gassage winning against Roger Penske.
And General Motors and the city of Detroit and a bunch of other major things. To be fair, there have been protests at the race from environmentalists.
There have been protests.
But dude, Belial is a 900 park. You've got a ton of space, and the track takes up so little of the amount of space that the Belial Park has. It's kind of split.
It's only on about half. It's like the track. The length of the track only takes up about half of the track. Well, half the island.
Yeah.
So there's another half of the park that's completely open for whatever, as well as part of what's around the track is completely open.
Yeah. The other thing too is they're thinking about putting in a casino there because there used to be one for a while. But
the biggest complaint that they have is the noise. Yeah. But there's no noise ordinance in Brooklyn, and not Brooklyn, but Detroit.
Detroit, no, there's no noise ordinance. That's why they did the old street race back in the 80s.
There's protests, but the protests aren't making any grounds.
No.
So it's like because they've taken it to the council, and the council's like, oh well, we're making money and it's tourism, so see ya.
Yeah. Well, Eddie Gossage brought it up because he's been pushing really hard on Twitter to try to do some kind of weird word of mouth campaign to get Texas into that week after Indy spot. But it's not taking off either. Because even Marshall Pruitt pretty much shot him down the first chance he had. It was beautiful. But
I think if I can look at the IndyCar chat again to see, because I don't remember, this conversation happened almost 2 weeks ago.
It did. We did have something like this 2 weeks ago. Again, I missed last week because of stuff happening. And then, it did, like last week's Lost podcast thing happened.
Yeah, Le Mans was a big, it was a big rant fest. That was for sure.
But
the reason the Mans thing got scrapped is because my audio jack, what I use for my audio jack, kind of screwed up halfway through, so the audio got really bad.
You talked about that.
You
figured out what was wrong, but that rest half of that podcast was just unusable. That's what you had posted.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Let me look.
So then I would think this could leave a question as you're looking it up. I would wonder, because there's been talk about a race in Mexico City for some time.
Mexico City is not going to happen without a driver.
That's what I was just going to say. There hasn't really been any kind of Mexican driver. One thing I think people forget about whenever they talk about Mexico City is that when Champ Car went there in 2003, they had 3 Mexican drivers on there. And fast ones too, not just like field fillers. You had Adrian Fernandez still. You had this guy. You had Dominguez. You had all these people competitive. And they still had one or two once in a great. But
if Esteban Gutierrez had managed to get that number 19 car for coin,
then you'd start talking about it more. Yeah, you could be talking about that more. And at the same time, you could talk about guys in Indy Lights like Pato O'Ward. Pato Award. My bad.
Okay, and then you got Alfonso Celis, who plugged it up over America.
He did better than like Chilton and a couple other guys, but yeah, he plugged it up pretty hard.
Yeah, but I guess that's expected because he comes from Formula 2, so the no power steering thing is a bit of a big deal.
that's super brutal, dude.
It's a bit of a shock.
That's a super brutal thing to get into first time.
On the VR Discord, now that I've got to the conversation, the VR Discord. Okay, so I had a debate with some people on Belle on the Belle Texas thing, because some people's like, "Oh, please let it be Texas. Please let it be Texas." Okay, yeah, a 13-car IndyCar calendar, not going to work. A 13-race IndyCar calendar is going to suck because you're losing Phoenix. Now, granted, you might get Homestead and Richmond, but we don't know that yet.
No, we don't.
If you lose Belle, that's 3 races you've lost, and we're already at 17.
Yeah.
And Toronto's still not a confirmed thing.
Yeah.
So, looking at 13, 14 races, that's pretty shit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to lie, that's worse than 2012. And 2012 was horrible.
Yeah, it was.
Like,
to be fair, yeah, you do. I mean, back in the day, you only had 16 races. Before the split, that was the thing. 16 quality. Oh, not even quality. There were some stickers in that time, but 16 races. Sometimes never really more than that. Maybe 1 or 2 years more than that. Generally.
Well, you also think that cars cheap, that the programs were cheaper back then too, so you didn't need as many races to make the money.
True. Now you do. So
yeah, because running a single car like what Harding's doing is $7 million. So
yes,
7-8 million.
Which, like I talked about a couple weeks ago, that's the same as running an IMSA program, GT Daytona.
Yeah,
which
GT3. Just the GT3 program in general.
Wow. Yeah, no, that still astounds me every time I hear that.
And that's without using that car at places like the Nürburgring or Spa.
No, where you got to get like endurance. You got to do super duper endurance like parts to get those things to last.
And then you've got to fly the car out there. You've got
that's
an extra $2 million.
Yeah, it's crazy. No wonder you've got sports car teams looking hard at IndyCar and thinking about going full time if there's spots available.
So since we're still on the topic of the calendar, I'm just going through the conversation. Okay, so there was one person that said, "I'd rather IndyCar go to a Canadian venue," and then I kind of brought the question, okay, where the hell are they going to go? You've got Toronto, which is a maybe. Edmonton's not happening because they've redone that airport.
Nope, can't do it.
Trois-Rivières is too small, and it's already stacked. There's 2 weeks that are stacked.
And it's in the middle of nowhere, and it's pain in the ass to get to.
On the same weekend as Texas. So
that too.
And actually, this has been brought up in the past because I remember actually suggesting a couple places that Angel and let me know that they weren't FIA up to FIA snuff and weren't necessarily worth it.
No.
So there's just nowhere in Canada to go outside of Montreal. And there's no time, place to go to Montreal that wouldn't conflict with the F1 dates that they have.
Yeah, because of those ordinances. Honestly, I mean, sorry to cut in on you, Tyler. The only thing I've heard as a possibility, and it's a possibility, but it's a long shot, a street race in Calgary built around the stadium where they hold the Calgary Stampede. It's something that's been talked about for a while. I've seen track map for it. The basic thing that I've heard, the only reason why it hasn't been done is that they can't find money. They can't find a sponsor to push it.
Yeah.
I think that is your go-to.
That's the same problem Vancouver had too.
Yeah.
Is that going to happen right after the street race that they have in Nashville that was proposed? Because I feel like street races right now, unless you have the backing from somebody and the place that's actually running it.
Backing for it. You need the backing to actually go for it.
This is a little different. The Calgary one's been around initially IMSA race, and then it is like a Champ Car race when Randy Bernard got kicked out. This is 2012, 2013, and Miles was coming in. Okay. It's been talked about for some time. The issue is money, lack of it.
Yeah, the promoters are still active. I believe people that organize. I believe the people that organize Mid Ohio is the same people behind Calgary.
Yes, Mike Lanigan. Mike Lanigan is supposed to be involved in that group. That's why.
You've got Sari Green, which
Mhm.
runs Barber, runs Mid Ohio, runs I think 3 or 4 races right now,
Yes.
are helping with that Calgary date. So
Yes.
there's
they
actual
want it to
people
happen.
in that.
That
It's
is
just
why I
that-
specifically brought it up. Yeah, because this is not just
It's just-
something. The Nashville thing, there was the same way. A Rhode Island street race was never going to happen.
Well,
this is something else. Calgary, the one is a little.
Nashville.
That's all.
Nashville is a different case because that was before Gateway.
Mm.
Because when Gateway
Okay.
came in, it shut that down completely.
Gotcha.
Nashville was in the same bucket that Calgary was in. It just they didn't have all of the they didn't one have all the staff that Calgary currently has working on it.
Gotcha.
And then when Gateway came in, that took up their market.
Yeah, no, I
So-
can see that totally happening.
Whereas Calgary's separate from
No.
Toronto, and it's the issue that you would have with Calgary is the same thing with most tracks would be a date.
yeah.
Because I mean you could run it back to back with Toronto, but that
It's
would
too
hurt.
close to this. No, that would hurt, and it's too close to the Stampede. It's too close to the main moneymaker for that whole area. So you don't want to cut
Unless-
into your main moneymaker to the area.
I'm involved with a huge rodeo down here in Texas, and yeah, you get it too close to that. First of all, the logistics of flipping it are just going to be a nightmare.
Yeah,
And second of
Yeah,
all,
especially
Yeah.
going from Toronto to Calgary then Pocono. That's
Yeah.
not gonna work.
no.
I mean, there's a reason the Houston rodeo is in March,
Mhm.
late February, early March,
Mhm.
and that's to not conflict with anything that's going to be going on down where NRG Arena is in the stadium. So
Yeah.
I agree.
But
Okay.
so yeah, Calgary's got the people behind it. It's just where's it gonna go?
Yeah, it's time and money,
then-
basically.
And if it does happen, it would be right next to Portland.
It's not terrible, actually.
It's
That's
not. It's not terrible. It's just there's not a lot of room because that makes it 4 races
No.
back to back to back to back, and that's not going to work
No.
because you're going from Gateway to Calgary,
No.
and then you've got Portland and then Sonoma. So logistically, Gateway, Portland, Sonoma works because you've got a mid race, a week off, and then you've got 2 West Coast races. Now you've got a Central Time, Mountain Time, and then 2 West Coast races.
Specifics. Yeah, no,
doesn't
that's
work.
tough. That's way tough. Yeah.
And that's really difficult, especially when you have to think about the logistics of international races.
Oof, yeah.
Which is technically what that would be.
Yeah.
So yeah, you need time between Calgary and whatever comes after it, and what happens before.
Okay. Yeah. So that's why, again, I guess that's why nobody's really talked, because again, lack of time, lack of a space for it to fit, and lack of money.
Gateway threw a wrench in everyone's plans.
Yeah, no, because nobody expected that to do, and it drew 50,000 people. Legit, 50,000 people, and it was like, whoa, shit. It got everyone's eyes kind of open because
It doesn't hurt that you got Bommarito. Yeah, I was gonna go
no,
right there.
they promoted the heck out. They promoted the heck out of it.
So that's where the calendar stands, and to kind of rule out any other possible Canadian venues, Mosport isn't safe enough.
No,
and it can't support the full ladder. It can't support IndyCar, Indy Lights, Pro Mazda, and then Formula 2000. It can't support all of those, and that's a big thing. You need to be able to support the entire. Now you don't need to, as we've seen with some of the ovals, you don't need to. But if you're a road course event, you need it.
Yeah, no, the road courses, you need more people you need more things to get people to fill out the day.
Yep.
And then there's also the possibility of Pro Level Challenge being a thing.
Yeah.
There's just no space.
And there's no space in that pit lane.
And most sports not easy to get in and out of.
No, it's not. It's tough even for the trucks to go there, the Craftsman Truck Series or whatever they call it now, Camping World Truck Series, whatever they call it now. It's brutal. It's pretty brutal.
It's going to be Gander Mountain Truck Series soon.
And all of that's outside of the fact that it's only like 15 miles from Toronto.
Yeah. So market share issue again. Draw from the same pool of people.
That's why most sport doesn't work.
No.
You've got Montreal, which noise ordinance, and then the F1 date, which is early June.
And then you've got the new mayor who wants to. So the F1 race is the only available date on that place. Period.
Which which according to the contract's already a thing. So I'm
It
not
kind
sure
of already is. It just brought up because the Formula E race that got canceled there. That
Yeah.
was a thing, basically. Sorry, but that was just a thing.
Yeah,
was
that's
brought
a
up as
fair
part
thing.
of it.
So yeah, Montreal's not going to happen. So Circuit
No.
Villeneuve, mark it off. Troy Riviere, mark it off. E-car's not finished and it's not up to spec, so mark it off. Motorsport's not done, mark it off. Edmonton's not happening, mark it off. Vancouver, don't know why people keep mentioning Vancouver, mark it off.
Dude, that whole area got completely just rebuilt completely.
There's no way. There's no way Vancouver is going to be a thing.
You can't do that. No, you can't go there anymore. You'd have to go to a whole new location. And that's tough in that city because it's pretty well developed.
It's one, that city's well developed, and two, they're not big on racing.
No, they're not.
They're not big on racing at all.
They're not.
Like 1992, there's an incident in 1992 where a track marshal got ran over.
That was 91. Yeah, 91. That was 91.
That was it.
Ribs. That was brutal.
That was done. Like the drop off was so quick.
Yeah.
On Vancouver.
Yeah.
Like, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
See, Vancouver is not going to happen. I don't know why people keep mentioning Vancouver.
Yeah, I know.
It's just not possible.
Me neither. That's just no.
So,
dude, you'd have to basically make a new race if you want that to happen. You'd basically have to do a street race.
Yeah, you've got a street race, or there's a track that's being made in Ontario, which again, same state as Toronto.
Yeah.
That could work to replace Toronto. You're not going to add it alongside Toronto.
Hell no,
because there's a permanent facility that could replace it. And the reason why it's a big deal is because Jeff Gordon's helping design it.
Is it a road course or an?
It's a road course in an oval.
Oh.
And unlike what you're thinking, it's not a roval. It's not a roval. There's a road course and then an oval separate.
Is it like Motegi, or is it just like a road course and then on the same property there's?
It's not like Motegi. They're not combined.
Okay.
Well, I think they were.
They have their own facilities. That's the map out of it. Is that there's going to be a road course and there's going to be an oval.
Okay, I got you. All right. Huh.
Almost like Lucas Oil Raceway or Lausitz, where you've got facilities outside of the track itself.
Gotcha. Right.
And I don't think the oval is going to be that big. I think the oval is like a mile.
It's a mile. Oval. It's an odd shape, isn't it? And it's an odd shape too, isn't it?
I think so.
It's not a traditional shape at all.
No, it's not a traditional shape.
It's that man. Yeah. I saw that plan back in like 2009. Wow.
And they have been developing it.
Okay,
they have been developing
that's cool.
Yeah,
wow, that's cool.
It's moving slow because it's moving slow because there's no public money being used for it. So it just whenever they get the money for it.
Okay, that makes the reason. Okay,
since 2009, I'm not gonna hold my breath.
I mean, they've already working on actually getting the road course done.
Okay.
So now, obviously, people are going to be. Obviously, Tyler is going to be a little bit trepidate because of NOLA and what happened there.
Yeah.
But we talked about. I don't know if we talked about it in podcast or not, but we talked about NOLA and the fact that they're not broke anymore. No. Like they've got stuff going on almost every weekend.
Yeah. No, we talked about. I brought it up in the Discord chat, and Ava just straightened me out. She was the one who posted.
We talked about it, and we talked about it before the podcast too, because we're talking about.
Oh, that's right.
We talked about NOLA, because Angel talked about it like that week before, and we talked about NOLA, and if it comes back, what would it do? Where would we put it, and all that stuff. Because it was like one of those things where like, okay, if we were to replace Sonoma, what would we do? And then I think I threw up NOLA as a possibility because
I remember that conversation. You did, yeah.
So that was the thing that happened. I think that was like the first two episodes that had happened.
The thing is with NOLA is you've got to try and figure out a date that works to where you're not going to be in potential hurricane season, because all it takes is one hurricane and you're in NOLA. We all know how low elevation that track is. And you're going to have a canceled race, which is going to look bad, which is not going to be good.
Yeah.
So that's only my purview on NOLA. Fortunately, I just myself personally, I feel like tracks need to be built at least 3 significant figures above sea level.
Over 100 feet, basically. So basically,
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I agree with that to an extent.
I feel like that's acceptable.
That kind of throws Florida out of the question then.
Yeah,
maybe.
but...
I don't know. I mean, St. Pete's got to be.
St. Pete's right on the
low,
coast,
but that's also a street circuit, which when you have
and it's out of hurricane season.
Yeah. But the other thing is, street circuits tend to have slightly better drainage for the most part because
they've got public sewers. Yeah.
Right.
So,
you got Homestead.
Man. Yeah.
Well, I also got to think that early in the year, it's not going to be that. It's not going to rain that much.
No.
Which is why it's there.
You should be good. The hurricane season starts toward the end of May and goes all the way to November, roughly. So, for those
and then
of you,
you've got Homestead, which is also below sea level, which is also below that 100 feet below sea level, but it's an oval, so you're not going to race in the rain anyway. So, yeah, the calendar situation is really interesting because you've got people like ISC and IndyCar name dropped Homestead on the same day.
Yep. It was in the Racer doc. It was in the Racer.
It was in Racer. ISC made it like when they made their comment on Phoenix leaving, they name dropped it there. IndyCar's name dropped it twice.
Okay.
Like there's something that's happening. There's conversations happening at Miami regarding a race early in the year.
There's clearly some want for it.
And then they've also name dropped Richmond, which would fit in like that early August, late July date.
Right.
I think we hit the nail on the head.
Yeah,
so we've done it to death. I would love Homestead, and I would love Richmond. I think you had really good races there before in the past, and I think with this current gen car, you'll have pretty good races as well. So
I agree with Tyler. This new car could make those tracks really come alive and have a different kind of driving and a different kind of race than the old IR, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's both those races I think are appealing.
Yes.
And the fact that we're talking about ovals and not road courses is the best thing about it, is because there needs to be some more different ovals.
And they are different, dude. They really are different.
People on Twitter irritate me because people are like, well, we already have Iowa. Okay, yes, Iowa's a lot different than Richmond.
Hell yeah, it is.
Like, oh my God, are you stupid? Okay, first of all, Iowa's a little bit longer. It's a different shape, different banking.
Well, don't give it all away, Clayton. If you're interested in the differences between Iowa and Richmond, do some due diligence and look up those differences before you just post it on there. Because I don't know about you guys, but I want to get some Road America talk.
Oh yeah, sounds good.
Not to hijack this.
Let's go.
We haven't even talked about silly season yet. Oh my
God.
We'll just say that for Iowa.
It's not halfway yet. Silly season doesn't count unless it's halfway.
Yes, it is.
Actually, it is.
We're past halfway. Silly season's on, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. The 2 Detroit races.
We're past halfway. The halfway point was Belle Isle.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Actually. So.
Yeah, the halfway point was Belle Isle. So.
I guess. I don't know. Do you want me to throw out the big rumors?
We'll just talk about silly season. We'll talk about silly season for Iowa next week. Because there's some stuff. There's some stuff that came out, but then there's more stuff that's in development.
I think we'll have a better picture after Iowa too. Plus, we'll have some race stats to talk about and a little bit more prognostication.
Because Tyler has his Jim McGee story. I wanted to hear it. I wanted it to be.
We'll hear about it next week. Because we still have to talk about Road America. We have to make our predictions for Iowa, and then we've got to talk about two F1 races.
Okay, Road America. Let's do it.
Okay, so Road America was. I personally think that Road America was an interesting race.
Yeah.
Very.
So Newgarden dominated the entire weekend. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
First, both days of practice on Friday, started on pole, won the race. Congratulations.
Unbeatable.
Well, okay.
Not
Robert
really.
Wickens was quick into
I
the
wouldn't
third.
say
track.
completely unbeatable.
No,
Just
he wasn't.
uncatchable. You couldn't run him
What I
down.
said is that Newgarden was the fastest both days on Friday. Wickens was fastest before qualifying, but
Mm,
Newgarden was the fastest on Friday.
okay.
So Newgarden was pretty dominant all weekend, which was okay because he wasn't unbeatable. Like Hunter Ray was on
No.
him, Dixon was on him.
No, he never held.
There was 4 or 5 drivers that were there.
Yeah, the fun thing about Road America was you had Newgarden led all but single digit number of laps. The actual figure escapes my brain, but he never had a gap more than 2 seconds.
And that gap was at the end.
That was at the very end. Yeah, it was close the whole way. Ryan Hunter-Reay was right behind him the whole way. Alexander Rossi was with Ryan Hunter-Reay. Sato was with Rossi. The top 5 were all right there between maybe, I'm going to say
7 seconds.
7 seconds all day until they all started to fall off. Until some
Because of the tires.
Because of various reasons. We'll talk about those various reasons later.
Nobody really been able to do anything with them.
So Newgarden started on pole. You had Rossi, Power, Hunter-Reay also in the top 5. So a lot of the big championship contenders were there.
Yes.
And you had Robert Wickens in 6th.
Yep.
To start off the race.
And Sato in 4th.
So things took a bit of a downturn on the start because Will Power, who started 2nd, suffered a boost failure.
Yep.
Coming to the start.
Yeah.
So he went into the garage after 1 lap. They tried to fix it. They ran him back out for a few laps, and then they just retired the car because they couldn't fix it.
No.
So after doing so well from Indy to Texas, it just fell apart for him.
Yeah.
Well, I guess he didn't do well at Texas if he crashed, but he had a good run going for him at Texas when he crashed.
Yes, he did.
So he finished last. I think he was the only retirement at Road America, which was impressive.
I believe he was. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe he was because then it was the Carlin cars, and the Carlin cars don't crash often. They're just
bog slow. Yeah.
I think Veach was right in
No,
front.
Zach Veach was the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he has
Veach had
steering
his
issues. Him and Rossi both had steering arm issues.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So Newgarden was pretty dominant, but he wasn't alone at all. You had Newgarden there. You had Rossi. You had Wickens. You had Sato. You had Dixon. There's a whole volley of people that were there.
Yeah.
And for once, the Dixons.
So because of how bumpy Road America is, it tends to be difficult. Zach Veach had been fighting from the start because apparently he had I'm trying to remember what the part was that was wrong, but they had to fix that. Rossi would end up having the same issue, which a lot of people will call karma because of what we're getting ready to talk about.
We'll get to right. Save that for a sec.
And then you had Carlin, which were down. You had Alfonso Celis, who despite crashing in practice, wasn't terrible.
No, he wasn't.
No, he wasn't. And you had Gabby Chavez, who had a decent weekend. I mean, he was up and down in the top 10 and out of it. Because he was off sequence for I think most of it.
Yeah, he was off sequence, and that team in general was just going through a makeup engineering wise. So they kind of said before the weekend started that this was going to be like winter season testing in the middle of the year for them. So I thought they did okay.
Yeah, they did decent. I mean, they showed pace. They showed pace, and had a caution come out at a more convenient time, they would have been pretty.
They might have been there, yeah. But this was a race that went. So.
Yeah, it went caution free, which was impressive.
Had a caution come out at any time.
Scott Dixon would have been in the money. Sato would have been in the money.
Oh my god.
Frickin' Graham Rahal would have been in the money. Marco Brandretti might have been in the money too, because all those guys were off strategy too.
Yeah, you can't overlook Marco.
And Marco and Graham were putting on a great show in the back too, in the midfield. They were bumping, banging. They were pulling some pretty crazy moves.
Yeah,
Got the cameras picked up.
Yeah, he was like before Veach had issues. He was able to battle with Rahal a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get to Alexander. He's becoming more and more of a talking point, which is good and bad. I'm saying bad because it takes away from everyone else. Like he finished, I think 13th, 14th. But everyone's talking more about him than what they were about the podium finishers.
Yeah.
So that's a bit weird, and that's happened 3 times this year.
Well, the first time it was valid.
Well, the first race.
St. Petersburg, it was valid, I thought.
Yeah. Well, let's just get into it.
Detroit race 2, I thought was valid again because he cracked because he kind of cracked under pressure.
He was basically basically the main story of that. So
yeah. And then the Road America, we'll get into. Tyler, would you go first or whatever?
Let's set up the scene.
Okay.
So Rossi's battling hard. Now we have the opening lap incident. There was an opening lap incident between him and Robert Wickens, I think, turn 7.
Yeah, it was going up the hill to turn 6.
Okay, so coming up the hill to turn 6. It was coming out of turn 5, I guess.
Yes, coming out of 5, going up the hill to 6.
So Wickens is on the outside. Ross is on the inside trying to make a pass. And Rossi squeezes Wickens off. Okay, opening lap incident. Okay, whatever. That's fine. Now, some people is going to argue that, there was contact or there wasn't contact. I know the NBC broadcasters said, "Oh, there's no contact. There's no contact," which irritated people.
The NBC broadcasters were on the fence. The IndyCar stewards came back and said there was no contact, so no action will be taken. That was offense number 1.
Yes.
Or that was investigation number 1. Let's put it that way.
Yes. A lot of investigations in this race.
Now we go on to after the first pit stop sequence.
Yeah, and then Rossi's battling Takuma Sato.
For the same position, 3rd.
For the same position for 3rd and same spot on the track.
Yep.
Rossi just makes a dive and squeezes Sato off. And Sato drops all the way to 6th.
Well, to be fair, Sato made a pretty ballsy move to get him in 5 to begin with. Locked up the brakes, got the little sideways. That little sideways is what Rossi got up on the inside. I was actually more, to me personally, I was more at issue with the first contact with Wickens than with Sato.
I was more at contact. I get it that it was aggressive driving, but the fact that they're like no contact when you clearly see that Rossi hip checked Sato off.
Yeah.
That was where I think my biggest issue was.
No. That was the BS part.
If you're gonna say
setup
no contact,
to that was
like I get it was hard racing, and Sato still finished really well. I think he finished
4th.
So
behind Dixon.
He's P5. I think P4, P5. Yeah.
P4.
4th.
I'm trying to remember who was 5th because it was Newgarden, Hunter-Reay, Dixon. Yay, Dixon. Sato. And
Wickens.
I'm trying to remember who. No. Rahal.
Really?
Rahal's 5th.
Oh yeah, Graham. That's right. Graham shot.
Rahal's 5th because it was 4th, 5th for Rahal. And then I'm trying to remember. I think Wickens was 6th. I think he finished where he started.
That's right. 6th.
So he did good. Hinch did not. I think Hinch finished outside the top 10. I think he finished 12th.
Yeah, he was not fast.
Wasn't fast all weekend.
No.
So that was uncharacteristic. My issue, I don't personally have an issue with what Rossi did. Okay, first incident, you're side by side with Wickens, and okay, you push Wickens off. Okay, that's. I get that.
It's a dick move.
It's a dick move. Yeah. But you have the ability to do that. It's nothing compared to F1. That's nothing.
No.
And we'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah.
Because between France and Austria, it was just
yeah. But with IndyCar and Road America, the big thing, of course, with Rossi, after the Rossi hip check, his issue was the same thing Veach had, or different from Veach had, but similar issue. Basically, what happened was
it was
a camber shim on the right front, or on the left front wheel, actually, not the wheel he hit people with, or got into people with and hip checked. It was the other side. But it loosened out, so the car was getting inconsistent camber throughout the lap. And that's when they stopped and got a lap down and ended up finishing, I believe, first of the lap down cars.
Right. I think Veach's wasn't Veach's actually like one of those king nuts on the steering arm though?
Yes.
That aren't supposed to come.
It totally messed up the whole But the funny part was, even though it messed up the car, Veach set the race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're having to hustle it.
Exactly.
But
So Rossi hip checked two people. I essentially hip checked two people off. Wickens, I kind of give a free pass on because one, it's opening lap, and you're side by side with someone the entire time. It's either you hop the curb to give him space, or you just be a dick, and you just push them. And if you in IndyCar, if you hip check it, if you curb hop at any point, it's not going to be pretty because no power steering. You're going to have the little snap from it.
No.
So Rossi, I think, made the best of the situation without completely giving up. Because if he had given up, he would have been jumped.
Yeah.
He would have been jumped by Bourdais. He would have been jumped by Sato. He would have been jumped by 2 or 3 people behind.
Right.
My issue with the whole Sato deal is like, okay, yeah, Sato's got him. Sato got him going into 4, and then overshot 4. So Rossi's getting him back. Dove it in 5. Now, granted, Rossi had his nose there going into 5, but he dove it in. Like, he lunged into 5 and squeezed Sato off.
Ran him into the grass, even.
Yeah, ran him beyond. I think he ran him completely off the curbing.
Off the curbing into the grass. That's what I remember seeing.
Which I thought was a dick move. And then the IndyCar officials being like, "Oh, no contact, no further action." It's like,
nah.
What?
Yeah, I don't get
Nah, dude. Yeah, what, mate?
So that was where my big issue came. Is that you go, okay, I understand. Like, just say it's a racing deal. Just don't pretend it's no contact. Because that makes essentially everything Pastor Maldonado does legal.
He's been pretty good so far. He hasn't been like that guy.
But he's an LMP2, but he's not the only driver.
No, he's not. But he hasn't been running into he used to.
Well, it's because you've got to keep the car together for 2 other people to hop in.
And amazingly, somehow he gets that.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird. We'll talk about it like next week, I guess, with IMSA and stuff and sports car stuff. But yeah, Road America was fun, man. It was a good race, all considered. Like, it was a race where you look at the stock stats and you go, "This looks like it should have sucked," and it looks like it was boring. But then when you watch it, you go, "Wow, this was pretty good."
To me, it was Belle Isle with a longer track and prettier scenery.
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying it was a bad thing, the Belle Isle race this year. There was a lot going on.
It wasn't most of it strategic.
Yes.
Yeah. Very, very much so.
I thought Dixon able to extend the fuel mileage, and I'm gonna give my quick take on Rossi here while I've got the thing. Dude, I mean, I like racing hard and everything. Keep that up though. No, Paul Tracy doesn't race in the series anymore, but somebody's going to get tired of your shit, and they're going to hit you with the chrome horn. And they're going to basically do what you kind of did to Wickens in the first round. And, fair play to him if he doesn't get out of the car and whine about it. I'm totally on board with that. I would, though, how awesome would it be, Rossi, Wickens, the new Tracy Bourdais?
Ooh, man.
It'd be good for ratings, that's for sure.
It would be very good for ratings and publicity. For the health of their families, I don't know how good it would be. But I wouldn't mind seeing that. Just a little bit of it. I don't want it to turn into pro setup.
It's more than what we currently have, where there's no character at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's in Rossi's character to be like that. Wickens, I could see maybe getting.
I don't see them being.
Yeah.
I don't see them being quite that physical, but I see on-track issues being pretty big.
Right. Yeah, I could see on-track issues. No pushing and shoving, maybe, unless they're like fighting for a championship at some point.
Well, we're also not racing in Denver anymore.
That's true. That too.
But yeah, like Wickens can get his elbows out if he wants to. I mean, he's racing DTM. He can get his elbows out.
Yeah,
And Rossi's obviously shown he's able to get his elbows out. So
yeah,
I think that
they both went through the same European ladder system. They know the kind of intensity you need for racing. But
they also know the type of tricks that they're going to pull on each other too. So
exactly.
They did race against each other in Formula 3.5.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't think we're going to see too much of that this year. I think next year will be a big year.
Yeah.
If it happens.
Yeah.
Because this year the seed's been planted.
Yes.
Plenty.
Yes.
I think next year, now that Wickens will have a full year and he seems to be staying put at Schmidt, and Rossi's obviously staying put at Andretti. Oh yeah.
Yeah, baby. Yeah. But let's see.
Yeah.
I don't see them getting out of their cars and throwing fists at each other and stuff like that.
No.
I see them being pretty aggressive with each other. I see them being, okay, you're gonna push me off track. Take some of that.
Okay, only thing I could see them getting into it physically would be if they're fighting for the Indy 500 or something big like that to set the emotions and tempers. But otherwise, no, I agree with you, Clayton. It's not really in their like big nature to be that kind of confrontational. Off track, on track, yeah, I could definitely see some crazy stuff going down next year, for sure.
I mean, Rossi and Wickens are for all intents and purposes are fighting completely different battles this season.
Yes.
Wickens is in a learning period.
Yes.
Where he's just like, okay, a lot of these places I've never raced before, or I haven't raced them in a very long time.
Yes.
Whereas Rossi's like, okay, I've been here. I'm a championship contender.
Yeah.
Move out of my fucking way.
Yeah.
And he's also in a much higher position than Andretti than he had been before.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I'd be willing to, depending on how it goes this year, I'd be willing to say that Rossi's probably going to take the number one role.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
That would be fair to say.
Because now that would be interesting to play because you have Rossi and Alonso. That'd be an interesting role to play.
Oh God!
I thought we were going to say that for next week, though.
Well, it seems to be a given. That's less of a silly season and more of a, it's happening.
I'm just
okay. Now, the F1s, some of the F1 silly season we'll talk about. I'm not going to go into too much detail because Silverstone, and we're supposed to have more information then.
Right. For a lot of things.
Yeah, for a lot of things. But yeah, that's Road America in the nutshell. It was a really good race. I think
7.5 out of 10. I think.
It wasn't the best Road America race ever, but it was pretty good. It was fun. Okay. It was intense. Yeah. It was worth the price of admission.
Yes. It was a sellout crowd too.
It's a sellout crowd. And I think Road America renewed, so they're there for another 3 years.
Yep.
So
they did.
So that's stellar.
Yes. But okay, I believe it is time for Formula 1.
Yeah.
Vive la France to the Circuit du Castellet. Circuit du Castellet.
This is funny. Okay,
I like to call it the gorilla parking lot.
Nice.
For some reason, there's a gorilla.
Banksy's parking lot. Banksy, dude.
Okay, so everyone before this race was saying that Paul Ricard is going to be a shit racetrack. It's going to be a shit race, and no, it wasn't. No.
Okay. Continue.
Okay.
Lead on.
No. Okay. So
see where this goes.
Yeah.
Okay. So Paul Ricard. Okay. So everyone complains with this current downforce package that okay, it's really impossible to follow people. Yet Paul Ricard recorded, well, as of now, the second most passes of the year.
Okay. I'm going to say artifact to a certain extent on that, due to the fact
artifact because you've got Vettel and Bottas that had to come from the back. I get that. But even discounting Vettel and Bottas, he still had the third most, and that's because of Bahrain.
Yeah.
Well, I was just
This-
going to say
this had more-
artifact to the fact that you can still run wide at Paul Ricard and not get past somebody, but if you run wide, you're going to get past. Just the way that that layout is, you've got to get back on, and you have the ability to get back on, so you're not trying to do those last ditch maneuvers to get back on. Plus, you're not bending the car, so to speak, with Paul Ricard. So I feel like that because it's so big, so wide, so much runoff, drivers are going to be so much more aggressive with that runoff to where they're going to make mistakes, run off, and get past that way. Now, if these are on-track passes with DRS, it makes sense. But I feel like I didn't see a whole lot of those.
Coverage was pretty bad,
It
in my
was.
opinion.
It was, and it's hard to tell where
there was quite a bit of DRS passing, especially in the midfield. Obviously, beyond Vettel and Bottas. You had the Haas battling. Well, one of them.
One of them.
You had Magnussen.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Unfortunately. You've got Renault, who were battling quite a bit. You had Force India, which were battling, Sauber, which were battling. They were exchanging positions quite often.
Oh yeah.
And you didn't know who was going to finish where. Magnussen pulled away and kind of cemented his place as best of the rest for that race.
Yep.
But then you had Renault, you had Force India, you had Sauber, not Paul, but
Charles Leclerc.
Charles Leclerc
he's a stud. That dude is amazing.
Yeah.
He's
him
the
and
real
Esteban
deal.
Ocon. Esteban Ocon, and Max Verstappen. Yeah,
they're the real deal.
Those are the big three. Those are the big three next names.
Yeah.
Well, and that brings up a good point with Esteban Ocon. Two of the three. Well, yeah, two of the three actual French drivers not even making it to lap one.
Yeah.
And on top of it, I'm going to throw Leclerc in there, even though he's from Monaco.
Yeah.
Which might as well be baby France.
Tax haven France.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, those two guys, I think Grosjean had a really decent showing, despite
qualifying wise, he did good.
Yeah, he did.
Even in the race, I feel like he did the best he could with his equipment and didn't sort of overextend himself as he's been doing. And then Leclerc just being Leclerc, and I'm beginning to think that Leclerc is Monegasque for brilliant, because holy crap!
He's doing something with that car that Ericsson's able to find it sometimes. Leclerc's been finding it every time recently, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant when it happens. It's brilliant when you get to watch it for an extended period of time. So yeah, he's replacing Raikkonen at some point soon. Now I'm not going to go into the silly season thing because I don't think he's replacing Raikkonen next year. I'm willing to say that Raikkonen is staying another year just to give him a bit more seasoning because Sauber need him. Sauber's going to need him, and I think he needs a bit more of the seasoning. I think he needs a bit more of the struggle and battle. Because if you get him to battle that well in the mid pack, which is so competitive, he should be with flying colors by the time he moves up.
I guess.
Well, at the same time, I read a rumor that they actually were going to try to get Kimi to go to Sauber and Leclerc to do a ride swap or some point.
Well,
by this point of the year. That turned out to be nothing, but it's the fact that it was talked about.
Yeah,
it's putting people in there. Ferrari know that Leclerc is a big thing. They are grooming him for that number 2 Ferrari slot. Maybe, possibly with the ability to be a number 1, depending on what Vettel wants to do.
He's not going to be a number 1. He's not going to be a number 1 until Vettel leaves.
No, I know that. I know that exactly.
But
Vettel,
and this is the big key.
I don't know if his performances are going to dictate that, though. If he keeps doing what he does,
it's the paycheck. It's the paycheck. Who do you pay more? And you're paying Vettel a lot more. That's kind of what dictates.
And not only that, Vettel generally is friendly with Kimi. He doesn't see Kimi as like, oh my god, I got to beat this guy every weekend, like some other drivers get. He's like okay with Kimi doing better sometimes, but not all the time. He's got that different. He's got a different mentality when it comes to a number 2. Compared to others.
So now it'll be interesting getting Leclerc in there because Leclerc's not stupid.
No.
He's not gonna play the game of, I'll go ahead and be cannon fodder. No, you can tell that already.
No, he knows the talent. He's aware of the talent.
So you have Leclerc who's in the wings. I don't think he's replacing Raikkonen next year.
No.
I don't think. And that's simply because I think if they're going to try to make that Alfa Romeo Sauber thing work, they want him there to kind of help build that up. They want to build him up there.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of a pseudo factory team.
Yeah, they're B team.
And then move them along.
Right.
Because essentially Ferrari's got 2 B teams. You've got your actual customer team in Haas. And then you've got your Toro Rosso with Sauber.
Yeah. With Sauber getting more of the driver's side of things and Haas feeling more of the development side of your B teams, basically.
Yes.
So you try out stuff.
Haas is there because they've got the money, they can pay for it, and they're not crap.
No, they're not crap, dude. They're just a very as
we'll allude to in Austria.
Yes.
But so Leclerc's in the wings. Ocon's in the same position.
Yeah.
Bottas isn't going anywhere next year, but when he does go, Ocon's going to be there.
Yeah. It's looking pretty likely.
And more and more people are beginning to say that Lewis is kind of on his way out too.
I was gonna say,
Lewis
goes before Hamilton.
Honestly, dude, I don't know.
I see a bigger ceiling with Bottas and the way that he handles cars.
Well, Bottas is also younger. He's got more years on him.
Yes, he does.
No. Yeah, but I just see a bigger upside though in the way that Bottas handles cars and sort of handles feeling out how to maximize what you can get.
He's not as controversial either.
Cars.
No, he's pretty safe.
That aside, I'm just looking at pure skill. I mean,
yeah. Looking at skill.
You put Hamilton in the car, and Hamilton demands what he needs from that car, and you're supposed to get it for him. Whereas Bottas,
and it doesn't work. It doesn't work well when he doesn't get it.
No.
But Bottas is a little more adaptable.
Way more adaptable.
Able to extract
and that's his time at Williams.
Yeah.
But let's look into the future a little bit. We're going to be coming up on these new regulations where everybody's going to be starting from scratch. Who would I rather have in that Mercedes seat if I'm a Mercedes and I'm still around? I want Bottas. I'm sorry. I want Bottas.
Yeah.
I could agree with that. I could see that.
I think Hamilton's on his way. I think Hamilton's on his way out to retirement.
Yes.
Yeah, actually. I think if he wins the championship this year, he's going to quit.
Because you're entering new regulations, and Mercedes is not as dominant as it can be.
Nope.
Now, including Austria, Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes have all won 3 races so far this season.
Yeah, actually.
So
it's
the dominance that Lewis Hamilton was enjoying is done.
Yes.
Now he's gonna say like, "Oh, I enjoy this battle," but how much are you really gonna enjoy it when you start losing to more than just one guy?
Yeah.
What happens when Ricciardo starts winning more, or Verstappen starts winning more, or what happens if Vettel just keeps winning more than you? What happens? What happens if that rare occasion happens and Raikkonen wins a race and pulls it for the team? What happens when Bottas continues to outperform but starts, getting better everywhere?
It's a win. Yeah.
What happens then when you're suddenly one of the slower of the 6?
Yeah, man.
That's a big question mark. We haven't seen that, but it's getting closer.
And it's funny, but we talk about Lewis Hamilton like this.
And you've got this midfield that's closing in.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've begun to realize is that the gap to the midfield isn't that big anymore. Like, obviously, it seems that big over the long run because everyone outside of the top, I think everyone outside the podium was lapped.
Yeah. Well, okay, in France, 10th place.
I'm talking about Austria.
Austria, everyone outside the podium was lapped.
Well, if we're talking about Austria, unfortunately,
we're not talking about. I don't think we're talking about Austria. Let's just talk
the merging. This is kind of the merging.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. Before we do that though, let's talk
Mhm.
about since we talked about Rossi's on-track transgressions, let's real
Mhm.
quick talk about Sebastian Vettel and how he
Ooh.
somehow continues to escape the rod, even though he's
Yeah.
a rat
You know?
out there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Sebastian Vettel, grow the F up. Stop running into the back of people. I understand you want to get past these two Mercedes, but be smart about it.
Yeah.
Don't first turn, first lap it. That's
Mm.
Bush League, man. And I'm gonna go ahead and say it. And then to only get slapped
when
for 5 seconds.
I'm trying to think of when else he did it this season that he's done that. I can't think of another race this season that he's done that. I mean, obviously you got Singapore last year.
He's been better at it, but overall, I don't know. Unless he's starting up front, he tends to find his way into a incident. Unless he just either pulls off an amazing start or biffs it and has to sort of climb his way back and sort of sits there in that behind the Mercedes go.
Yeah, the thing is, I think I've got a different perspective on Paul Ricard than I guess you do, because Vettel's already on the inside of turn 1, and Bottas is steering in. Bottas is on the outside and he's steering in, and he just now personally now if this is IndyCar, it's a racing deal because Bottas is taking a wide arc and he just cuts Vettel off, and Vettel's already hugging the inside lane. Vettel locks up, and obviously when you lock up, it's game over because you can't turn the car.
Nope.
And you have to think, okay, F1, the way F1 penalties are is that it's based on the action and then the consequence you've already suffered. So what did Vettel get away with? Okay, he ran into the back of Bottas. Okay, both had to come to pit lane. Vettel destroyed his front wing.
Yep.
So he already had to come to pit lane once to repair his wing, to replace it. Bottas had to come in. He didn't lose his front wing, but he had floor damage. So both of them had already suffered. Even if you want to call it even if you want to call it Bottas's fault because he cut Vettel off, or if you want to call it Vettel's fault, they already had to drop all the way back.
Both of them.
And had it not been for the fact that Gasly and Ocon and I think 3 others were involved in an incident further up, like 4 turns, they would have been so much more screwed. Both of them were.
Yeah.
So you have to take that. That's how F1's done penalties for a long time, since I can remember. Is that they take into account what you've already suffered as a result. So okay, you started on the front row and you started in third, and now you're in the very back. You're as far back as you can go. Okay, what else are we gonna do to you? Like, what else can we do to you? And that 5-second penalty, Vettel served in the pit lane.
Yeah, he served on his, I believe it was last stop in the pit lane, almost 3/4 of the way through the race. I'm sorry. Here's where I draw the line on it.
I don't like the idea.
No.
I don't like the idea that it's pick and choose, but every team has the ability to do that.
Then don't let them have the ability. Write that into the regulations. Then you need to serve this penalty within the first quarter of the race.
You're talking about Formula 1, where the teams have more say than anything.
Oh, I understand that, but at the same time, then I would say, listen, you can either serve a 5-second penalty within the first quarter of the race, or what we can do is we can have you serve a larger time penalty at the end of the race, because the amount of time that you're going to make up by doing this is going to offset the penalty that we're going to get you. And that's what basically Ferrari did. They gamed it there.
Yeah.
I honestly believe they were able to not only utilize a slight undercut advantage, because we all know the undercut is very powerful on these tires now, utilize that and utilize that final pit stop to pull out a big enough gap to where he can minimize that 5-second damage.
Well, in that case, I wouldn't necessarily blame Vettel for that, though. And I'd just be playing at the FIA for that. Because
no.
my issue with I don't have really much of an issue with Vettel on the incident itself. He locked up because he was already on the inside. He was already hugging the inside curb. Like he's given Bottas as much room as possible, and Bottas just cuts him off.
Is that the optimal racing line that Vettel was on?
No, it's not. But at the same time, he was on the brakes before Bottas was.
So Vettel's not
Bottas
on the
just
optimal. Vettel's not on the optimal racing line, and trying to make a maneuver on Bottas, who Vettel is behind and should have the control of his car. Vettel being that on making a safe pass or a clean overtake on Bottas. Locks up his brakes. That's fine.
Not entirely how the rules are.
Mm-mm.
If you have a car alongside you, you have to give them space. Now, they don't often call that with the top cars because and we'll get to that with Austria because it happened a couple times there.
Well,
but especially in the midfield, if you squeeze someone like that, you get a warning for that. And Bottas did the same thing.
So my question to that is going to be, what constitutes alongside? If your front wing is past their, I would say, rear tire, mid-engine cowling area, I would say, okay, you're that's the minimum alongside. If you're not there, you technically aren't even past their rear axle. You're not technically alongside that car. You're outside that wheelbase.
Which Vettel was until he had to brake early.
Mm.
That's kind of the point, is that, Vettel was there and had to brake early because he knew he didn't have the optimal line, and Bottas still tried to take the apex.
Well, I mean, then I don't know. If I'm Vettel, I'm playing that a little bit differently because Mercedes is going to try and cut you off there. So play your cards, keep in DRS range of Bottas, and then as soon as you can get by Bottas, try to run down Hamilton as best as you can.
But I wouldn't necessarily I wouldn't necessarily say it's on Vettel because I personally think it's a racing deal. Bottas is going for the apex. Vettel's already on the inside. He was on his inside, so it's like, okay, yeah, you've made contact, but you both have gone to the back of the grid because of it. Have fun. Yeah, I get the idea. I get the problem with the whole picking when you serve your penalty and all that stuff, but.
Mm-hmm.
With that turn one incident itself, I can't say much about it because Vettel was there and just locked up trying to avoid Bottas and Hamilton, and Bottas still cut him off. And and I find it really difficult to believe that Bottas didn't know he was there.
You never know. I mean, with these current cars with the halo stuff around the outside of them, you just don't know. It's hard to say really. It's hard to say really with peripheral vision now, in my opinion.
Yeah. I can't get on Vettel much about the turn one thing. No, I was one of the biggest people that hated on Vettel with Singapore. One of the biggest people that hated on Vettel for Singapore. That was stupid.
Yeah, no. That's a different deal than this.
But, and at the same time, asking for change in Formula One is like...
Yeah, well, that's like asking our government to give us all a huge tax break this next year. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. What was the old wrestling saying? If wishes were fishes, the world would be an ocean.
Yeah,
always,
no kidding.
Wish in one hand, do something else in the other, and see which one fills up faster. So
yeah.
So then we go from Paul Ricard,
which Lewis Hamilton ended up winning. Max Verstappen did a great job.
It was Hamilton. It was
Verstappen 7 seconds behind. Raikkonen third, running at the podium. Ricciardo in fourth. Vettel had a good run to drop. Fifth.
and then
K-Mag got
Magnus in
the best
sixth.
of the rest for sixth. Bottas with the busted floor, seventh. The two Renault, Seitz and Hulkenberg. Claire
And-
scoring the
ninth.
last
And
point.
actually, we should give a little shout out there to Carlos Sainz, who is running up basically in the top 5, I want to say, top 5, type 6.
Very early
And
on in
lost
the race,
power.
yes.
For the majority of the race until about,
Yeah.
3/4 of the way, and then he started to have some sort of power unit issue.
Yes.
And then
You had to drop back, nurse at home.
Lance Stroll,
Nowhere.
doing his best,
Explosive tire blowout.
doing his
Yeah.
best Smokey the Bear impression of lighting it up.
Yeah.
Smokey in the Bandit style, but on the
Wow,
front.
man.
What is that? The front left. So I mean, you
Yeah.
can see that flat spot forever.
Yeah.
Should have probably just done it.
Okay.
So,
From the
there we
Castellet
go.
circuit in France to the Red Bull Ring in Austria.
And actually,
Yeah.
guys, I'm gonna have to head out right now. So
Yeah.
thanks all for listening. I didn't get to watch Austria, so I'll not add anything to this.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah. But anyway, have a great podcast, and I'll catch up with you guys next week. So
Later,
Oh,
Tyler.
Awesome.
yep. Bye.
Okay.
So, Austria was interesting.
Very interesting
now,
for modern F1.
I think me and Weasel both watched the highlights because
Yep.
it was too early in the morning for us.
I got up right near the end of the race, but yeah, I didn't watch it.
I woke up, but because I hadn't slept well, I just went back to bed.
Yeah,
Like,
I
sorry
basically
about it.
woke up during the
I thought it was going to be
podium
boring.
interviews. Yeah.
And I forgot that there was 3 DRS zones.
Yeah, dude.
That was crazy. But it helped.
It did. It really did.
So-
Watching the footage, but
So essentially, this race was the "What the fuck are we doing here?" game. Where apparently engines expire like freaking milk.
yeah. Well, to
Because
be
Renault had issues. Mercedes had issues.
Yep.
For all 6 Ferrari power cars in the points. Congratulations.
Congrats.
So
Crazy.
Bottas was on pole. It was Hamilton, and then
Mhm.
Raikkonen, Verstappen, Ricciardo, and then Vettel was in 6th because of a 3-place grid penalty for impeding Carlos
Sainz.
Sainz in qualifying.
Yep.
So Vettel started 6th.
Yeah.
And then you had
K-Mag
Hulken-
and then or no, sorry, my
Yeah.
bad.
you had K-Mag. You had I don't remember who, and then you had Grosjean in 12th because of a 5-place grid penalty for an engine, not engine, but gearbox.
Yep.
Because of not because of France, but they just changed the gearbox.
Yes.
Um,
They had problems with it in practice.
So, and that makes what Grosjean did in the race more impressive.
Way more
Um,
impressive. Yeah.
So, if the engine blow up game, take a shot every time the engine blows up. Ricciardo lost an engine. Both Renaults lost an engine.
3 drinks.
Both Mercedes lost engines. So,
Well, Bottas lost hydraulic pressure. He didn't really lose the engine. He lost hydraulic pressure, which meant that he couldn't activate the gearbox. More than an actual engine failure. Hamilton's the one that
Yeah.
had the actual engine failure.
wah wah wah.
Wah, wah, wah. Sorry about that.
So it was
So 4 shots. 4 shots. And then
okay.
Danny
Yeah,
Ricciardo.
sure.
Well, Danny
Um,
Ricciardo had problems too, actually.
Yeah, Daniel Ricciardo had engine failure
Mm-hmm.
because his exploded.
Yeah.
So this was interesting. So a lot of the front runners are out. So you've got Max Verstappen, who ended up winning. You had Kimi Räikkönen finishing 2nd, who was catching up to Verstappen at the end of the race, and then you had Vettel, who was kind of just on his own in 3rd.
And the top 3 were the only cars in the lead lap, finished within 3 seconds of each other.
And
On a
people said
1
the
minute-
80s were awesome.
Yeah, and people, and this is not the lap time in the race is 1:06.
Yeah.
Because of the 3 DRS zones. It's just, because the track is
crazy.
short to begin with, it's.
Yeah.
But I think
2.7 miles.
the engine failures, I think, came down to more of a question of being
Heat.
kind of near heat the high elevation, the thin air, and the fact that, I think a lot of people were on. Did they just switch over to engines? Are we on the second
Mercedes
one?
guys did.
Mercedes guys did. Wow.
Wait, so
Wow.
So Hamilton's already on his third.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hamilton's on his third now. Bottas, I think. Bottas is still on his second, but he's gonna have a good penalty for a gearbox.
Yep.
Man.
Ricardo is gonna be on his third.
Yep.
Both Renault cars are gonna be on their third.
Yeah. That's right. That's crazy, dude. I mean, what's it gonna happen? Because we haven't even hit the halfway point of the season yet, have we?
Nope.
Shit, dude. This is gonna get ridiculous.
Halfway part of the season is a Hockenheim.
Jeez.
Which is I think is like right after Nürburgring, well, not after Nürburgring, but Silverstone.
So do you think we're gonna get a case where, because of how penalties and stuff have played out, we're gonna get something ridiculous like one of the Haas's on pole position because everyone else had penalties?
Because Ferrari hasn't had reliability issues.
Okay.
So you're still gonna have Vettel and Raikkonen. It depends on when. I don't see Red Bull and Mercedes taking their penalties at the same time.
Gotcha.
I see Red Bull taking their penalties earlier.
Mm.
But Hamilton will have to take a penalty at some point.
Yeah.
And it'll be late in the season.
Gotcha.
I can see it either being the USA or Mexico that happens for him. I see it being.
Okay.
I see it being.
Gotcha.
Probably Japan, where.
Gotcha.
Red Bull take theirs.
Man, that's gonna.
And that's gonna swing. That's gonna swing the championship around real quick.
Yeah, no, that's gonna be.
But now a potential Haas podium, maybe.
Possible.
If you look at a place like maybe Brazil, yeah, possible. It's very possible.
Haas is a char that it's less like, it's not as like an all around race car he is. It's a little bit, I think, more toward Mercedes end of the spectrum in extremity. So with that said,
that's why it did well. That's why it's done well in most of the venues, is because it's made more for the Toke drums.
Yeah. Aren't a lot of Tilke drums left in the second half of the year. Maybe Coda, but even then that doesn't really suit them because the car is medium downforce, low drag, and it doesn't really want low drag at Coda.
That's one of the places that it benefits them the most.
Then probably, yeah. How funny would that be if that happened? But
so you've got Coda, you've got Mexico, you've got
Mexico might be one.
Technically Brazil because it's been Tilkified. You've got Yas Marina, you've got Singapore, you've got.
Wait, when did Tilk work on Brazil?
What did he do to Brazil? I'm
Tilk's
scared.
The one that redesigned it. Tilk's the one that redesigned it in the 90s.
Oh, he redesigned it in the 90s?
Yeah, he's the one that redesigned. He's the one that redesigned it to what it is now.
Oh, he did a pretty good job then. Shit, he did a really good job.
Okay, to be honest, like Hockenheim, it's just connecting the dots.
Yeah. Oh, dude, no. I don't like. To be frank with you, I know that he had to work within some amount of space because you couldn't touch that second.
The only thing that I don't
forest being private land.
The only thing I don't like about Hockenheim is the fact that they removed that old track completely.
Yeah, it's dead now.
So
totally dead.
That's gone to history now.
Well, again, they didn't own that land. That's why they changed the track. Yeah,
they did.
Wow. Is it like Monza because of the wow?
Yeah, they own that land. They own the track, and they owned a good part of the forest inside it.
Jeez. I guess they did it for ticket sales.
They had room to work. They didn't have the money to work on.
And I guess they did with what? Okay, so I guess they did with to and also to make the lap a little, get spectators more bang for the buck.
And the old track being lifted up was for tax haven.
I see. Okay.
That's why a lot of people are mad about Hockenheim. Is because of that.
Okay. Thanks for filling that in. Back to Austria.
And that's 2 races away from now. So yeah, have fun with that.
Okay,
So you've got Austria. You've got Verstappen, Raikkonen, Vettel. That's your podium. You had Grosjean, his first points of the season, and it's a
first
fourth.
points of the season in fourth.
So
pretty good job.
A great booster for confidence there, and
hell yes,
that's Haas's best result.
Yes, fourth place.
And then Magnussen was fifth.
That's our first double point score all year. K-Max scored all of their points
up to
this weekend, up to today.
Both Sauber's won points for the first time since 2015.
Both did. Force India scored points. Ocon in 6th, then Perez in 7th. Fernando Alonso got 2 and 8. And Marcus Ericsson gets a point. How does that happen?
I mean, it's happened before.
It has, but it's just you don't think about it. You consider a lot of people.
When you think about the nearest competition for Ericsson was Gasly and the Honda. Yeah, it's not.
No, it's not.
So it was a very interesting week, a very interesting race. So
because
and there wasn't a lot of contact. It was just engines
and mechanical problems.
So Vettel takes the lead of the championship by 1 point again.
Yep.
So Vettel and Hamilton have been hot potatoing this lead battle, and it's been a 1 point lead for each of them this past little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we're heading to Silverstone, which should be a Mercedes favored track.
No, that's a Mercedes track through and through.
Though we said that before, and we've been wrong. We said that about Australia, and it was wrong. We said that about China, and it was wrong. So, yeah.
The Mercedes does really well on tracks.
We said that about Bahrain and Red Bull won.
Well, to be fair, okay, the Mercedes does really well on courses with long, fast, sweeping turns. Russia, for example, is a place that I've just gone. That's a Mercedes track. The Red Bull is really good on the non-tilky drums.
What do you call Shanghai then?
It's not really. I mean, okay, it's a tilky drum, but it's a weird.
1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10.
But you got that big ass straight on the back to make it all that.
And Mercedes has more power than Ferrari.
Yeah. Okay. It's stringing them together. That's the hard part. It's stringing them together. That's the hard part. I'm gonna stick with it.
Even though they started on pole.
Lucky.
Yeah. We said that about. We said about Australia, and it was wrong. We said about China, it was wrong. Bahrain, it was wrong. Baku, it was wrong. Hamilton won by luck.
Yeah, that should have really been Bottas's.
It should have been Bottas's, and had Vettel had waited, it would have been Vettel's all the way through.
Yeah,
but like as soon as it's like he just happened to fall in his hands. Like he blew his tires, and then Bottas blew his.
Yep.
So Hamilton locked into that one.
Yep.
And Red Bull crashed out. So
yeah,
I mean, can't say Baku was Mercedes' track either.
No, too much weirdness. Even though it's got high speed.
Paul Ricard was supposed to.
Yeah.
Paul Ricard was supposed to be Mercedes' big track, but the gap was marginal.
Yeah.
It was super marginal. So that's not a big deal. People was like, "Oh, Red Bull ain't going to be their track," and they both blew up.
Yeah.
So we'll never know.
Really, it's weird, dude, because we're not in a case where it's Mercedes wins. We've got a legit 3-team fight for the championship.
Well, 2.5. Red Bull's kind of in it, but they're not.
They're
really
kind of in it, but they're not there. They need some big luck to but they can win races.
Yes.
So they can take away points from both. Which
yeah. So they've kind of cemented the fact that they're staying the third best team for a long time.
Yeah.
But Haas and Renault are battling for fifth, or battling for fourth.
Easily.
Battling. That's easily them too.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of places have been saying, "Oh, it's a Mercedes track. It's a Mercedes track." For the last 2 years, it's been wrong.
Yep.
Because you had Ferrari, then you had Red Bull, and then you had both Ferrari and Red Bull, and it's that way now. Like Red Bull's got, I think, a better chance than Ferrari at usurping Mercedes just because of the downforce.
Yeah.
Maggots and Beckett's, Cops.
Yeah, I mean, with how I go about
that entire first sector and how tight it is.
That's Red Bull.
That's Red Bull territory all over, but Ferrari has more torque to get out of it. So Mercedes is the middle line of it. It's just that,
So okay, it's basically so you go into a weekend. And you think, who's it going to be?
Like, okay, a place like Hockenheim, which comes afterwards, or a place like Hungaroring, then you can kind of say, okay, that's more one team or another.
That's Ferrari Red Bull territory to me, but Silverstone is just open.
Hockenheim's Mercedes territory, I think, more than anything. If you want to say Mercedes territory, that's it, because it's all power.
Man, even
now. You think about turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. There's straightaways to all of them.
Yeah.
You think about how long the straightaway is between turns 2, 3, and 4. Like, okay, yeah. There's no way. Red Bulls doesn't have a chance there. So, and the only place where Red Bull can catch up is the stadium section, which is literally like 5 turns.
5 corners. Yeah, it's not enough.
So yeah, that's not, that one's less hard to predict. Hungaroring is going to be harder to predict because obviously of how difficult that track is.
I mean, let's remember last year that the McLaren Honda had one of the fastest laps of the race.
That's right.
But yeah, I wouldn't. So just making a text real quick. Yeah. So this championship's really up for grabs between Mercedes and Ferrari. A lot of people are saying, well, this is a Mercedes track or this is a Ferrari track. No, it's not. It's negligible at this point. I would argue that most of it was negligible last year. But it's super negligible now because qualifying can go wrong with someone or the race can go wrong with someone, and you can't predict it now. Which is good and bad. It's good because it's unpredictable, but it's bad because you're having to go to such extreme lengths to get it. It's gonna make next year with the lower downforce, it's gonna make that look really weird.
Yeah.
But that said, at least we've got battles throughout the field to talk about. We've got Renault and Haas battling. We've got McLaren and the ongoing saga there, which we'll talk about next week because there's more. The more I hear about it, the more things change. So I'll just try to cover it next week. IndyCar silly season because there's a lot of things to talk about there, a lot of things to discuss and debate.
Do you want to do an Iowa preview or just a quickie? Or...
I'm not sure. I mean, if I do, I'll probably do a separate podcast for that. Really, I might do something on Friday, something short on Friday, just to kind of get that out of the way.
All right.
Because you're
the boss, man.
Just a week.
Okay.
It just, with my work schedule being so fluctuating right now, until I get through this training process, it's just like, we'll have to see on where. But I'd like to get at least. I'd like to have at least a short one to talk about Iowa and F1 and make predictions for that on Friday.
And IndyCar silly season. Are you going to say that for Sunday?
I'll say that for Sunday when we have more time.
Okay. Cool. Very cool.
All right. But yeah, that's about it. It's been Iowa's next weekend. You got Silverstone. You've got we'll talk about. I guess we'll talk about IMSA next weekend because we didn't talk about it today.
Yeah.
Pushing the 2-hour mark. So yeah, that's what happens when we have to catch up for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But, I mean, great conversation. Obviously, a lot to talk about, and we didn't even cover all the things we wanted to talk about.
Nope.
But I think that'll do it for this week. I've had Weasel. I've had RACECAR. I've had Tyler Parker, although he had to leave early. I love talking about it, so hopefully we get to do this more. But that's it for this week for VRR Unplugged. Tune in hopefully Friday for another episode. But until then, signing off.